Vice has a hilariously bad article for us. Let's take a look. So far, Overwatch 2 only makes the biggest problems with Overwatch worse. Maybe, what's your argument? Let's get some background to start. Overwatch was announced as a 6v6 team-based hero shooter with its small but significant 12-hero roster, which increased to 21 by the time of its release. These 21 heroes fulfilled three general roles. Tanks, who soak damage in place of their teammates, not really desirable to take damage, but sure, you'd sort of prefer that your tank take it rather than other people. DPS, damage per second, who do the killing, definitely not exclusively. And supports, who provide healing and general utility. Yeah, okay. Albeit with a lot of overlap in character specificity, which allowed some characters to fulfill multiple positions on a team. I'm glad they included that because it's definitely not, oh, your supports or your healers, your tanks take damage. No, your tanks can absolutely pick up frags. Your supports can absolutely pick up frags. They're more about enabling frags. Like, yes, the healing matters, but you're looking for their support abilities like Discord, like Anti-Nade, like Lamp as well. Okay. Then they're going to talk about how team composition shifted. Sometimes you got stuck in original Overwatch with 4 or 5 DPS. Really wasn't that common. I'm going to forgive that, though, because they do say in competitive play, people accepted it should be 2-2-2. Though they do have this weird thing about tanks would draw enemy attention through area of effect and damage and crowd control abilities. You're going to have to tell me more about what area of effect damage Orisa had. And the crowd control abilities are going to be pretty limited for someone like Zarya. What, she boops people around a little bit with her right click? No, not really. Tanks had bulkier health pools. They were, they had a little bit more health to them, and they had respectable damage to them. They didn't have as good of abilities for finishing someone off, but they could put out pretty solid pressure and set things up. But sure, whatever. While being bolstered by supports who they directly protected with their bulky bodies and defensive abilities. They didn't specifically protect supports. In fact, they didn't specifically protect all the time. Some off tanks, like D.Va, might go Hey a little more into protection mode, Sigma a little more into protection mode, but Roadhog's a tank, walks up the flank. Sigma frequently walks up the flank. If a support isn't with him, he doesn't care. Winston goes in on the enemy's backline. Reinhardt is really less about protecting his support backline and more about getting into the opponents and swinging on them. That does sometimes create space. All of these things create space for their supports. But they're not directly about protecting their supports. That's a misnomer. One DPS would focus on general damage, while the other would focus on killing supports. It depends entirely on the meta. Whatever. Okay, role queue, force people to adopt. We talked about that. That's fine. There were suddenly more people that wanted to play DPS, and then role queue caused some of those DPS players to go over to support and tank to fix the queue times, but they stayed too focused on DPS tactics, and that made the game worse. That's basically what we're getting here. I see. Overwatch 2 not only kept the role queue, so we're moving on here, but has exacerbated the problem by reducing the number of tanks on any given team from 2 to 1. It has, in fact, decreased the tank count. 5v5 structure has led to massive tank queues in the beta. It absolutely has. Hopefully those will go down as people get more used to the changes and go, hey, we understand this. It's not so novel to play tanks who have had the most changes anymore, so now we'll go back to playing our regular roles, but we shall see. The removal of a second tank also contributes to the shift towards a faster time to kill and accelerates the ongoing DPSification of Overwatch's meta, which refers to the... So let's just tell us what a meta is. Sure, let's see where they go with this. Oh, this is fun. In the months following Overwatch's release, Blizzard added Ana, a support sniper who could deal as much, if not more damage than she healed. Mechanically, that's not true, and it's never been true. She's sometimes had very similar numbers in terms of mechanically how much damage her shot does versus heals. She's had times where her shot heals for more than it does damage. We will occasionally find that when she's played, for most levels of play, she's going to do more healing than damage as well in terms of actual execution, how she's being played. At the top levels, as players get better, you find those numbers get closer, and when you're really winning a game hard, sure, you can do more damage than healing. That can absolutely happen. But it is not some widespread problem that Anas are doing too much damage in Overwatch 1. Not even close to that. I've done a lot of coaching, both professionally and down in the metal ranks, and I can tell you, for most of the latter, Anas are more on the, hey, you're healing too much side, you're not taking enough offensive shot side. But let's continue. From that point forward, the support role was filled with these types of characters. Ana, Moira, Baptiste, and Brig were all post-release supports with ridiculous damage potential. Moira? We're complaining about Ana and Moira's damage. Really? Really? Brig's damage. Bap has some pretty good damage, don't get me wrong. It's actually worse in Overwatch 2 than it is in Overwatch 1. He had a range nerf, but we do not have serious damage to worry about with these 3 additions compared to Zen, who was in the original support line. Does great, fantastic damage. Sim, who was originally a support and was since moved over to damage. That's, again, another high damage character. Lucio's damage isn't bad either. Another original support. It's just hard to use his weapon. Now, I don't doubt the writer of this article doesn't do good damage with Lucio, but Lucio's damage capabilities are plenty high. Plenty comparable to a Moira or to a Brig in terms of what he can get done. It's just like, people just aren't good enough with it. This is not some issue of, oh, the later supports do too much damage compared to the early supports. If anything, it's the other way around where, hey, the later added supports, Ana, Moira, Bap, probably do too much healing compared to the release supports. But from the design perspective, this is an easy answer to a difficult question. How do you make supports feel active? We'll just make them shoot a lot and put numbers on the board in addition to their healing. The problem becomes that every character begins to fill an extremely homogenous role on their team. Not exactly. The supports are pretty meaningfully different. Like, really meaningfully different. It's everyone's job to kill. Oh, they mean between the different roles. It's everyone's job to kill all the time. Sometimes supports take a break from the murder to do some healing or to buff their allies. And that's fine. That's a perfectly reasonable way to play the game. Here we go. Damage-heavy supports were accompanied by an ever-decreasing time-to-kill metric across the entire cast. No. Time to kill refers to the amount of time it takes to defeat an enemy in a perfect interaction. The higher a game's time to kill is, the longer the average character survives in a gunfight. Overwatch's time to kill began relatively high. Part of that was because the weapon damage was lower. And part of that was because people came to Overwatch with less FPS experience than most games. Overwatch pulled in a much broader background of players, including MMO players, than most shooters have in the past, just based on how Overwatch was done, how it was marketed, what company made it, the designs that they used. It pulled in a non-FPS audience to a much greater degree than others. That means poor weapon play. That does mean a higher TTK. As time goes on, people's weapon play does get better. This made healers essential for keeping your team alive during any given fight. You mean supports? The lower your TTK gets, the less opportunities healers have to heal. Those are still supports. This further muddied their role. Oh boy. Oh boy. So now we're going to move on to Overwatch 2. Let's see what they have to say. Overwatch 2's beta time to kill is significantly lower than the first game. The lack of another tank to soak damage, the increase in damage capabilities across the board, the overwhelming dominance of hit scan weapons has made the game feel extremely scrappy. That scrappiness makes... Okay, that's fine, whatever. There's some truth to this, absolutely. Removing your basically full-time diva second tank to go contest a second angle to deal with the soldier over there, the Ashe over there, the Widow over there, it absolutely does make hit scan pretty darn powerful. I'm not going to deny that. I am, however, going to go back here. They want to tell us about how, oh, it's the TTK got so lowered. The reason that TTK got lowered is because damage went up. But the reason damage went up is because we added Ana and Moira and Bap to the game. You know what they do compared to Mercy, Zen, and Lucio? They heal a lot more. When the strongest healing combination you could put on the board on release was mostly going to be Mercy, Lucio, which healed this much, and you add Ana, Moira, Bap to the game, who will have pretty similar levels of healing potential, the expected and standard healing in games goes up to here, which means nothing dies. At least nothing dies that doesn't have a small health pool that can immediately be burst down. So what do? You replace those heroes with small health pools that can be burst down with tanks. Maybe run 3 tanks, have those 3 tanks have great peel abilities to peel for your 3 supports. Now you have goats. How do you try to break goats if you're a developer? Well, you could have nerfed the sustain. You could have tried that. But the first thing that they tried to do is they tried to buff damage. They tried to make damage relevant. So they tried to make damage they buffed it and buffed it and buffed it to the point of, can we punch through the amazing amount of peel that 3 tanks bring to protect the supports, or can we punch through the tanks themselves and outdo the healing? Because if you don't, nothing ever dies. That's why damage got high. And then TTK does feel really low on 200 HP heroes that aren't being peeled for, that aren't being protected by DM, a Rhine Shield, that sort of thing. This is very much a chicken and the egg thing that definitely started with the no, sustain went up, and that caused damage to go up. So there's some rewriting of history going on here. Crowd control abilities have been taken away from DPS and support heroes. Fine. Despite the brightness of its characters and the potential it once had, Overwatch is not currently a shout, it's barely a whimper. So that's clearly where they wanted to get to, and that's fine. They just wanted to take a shot at Overwatch 2 beta. That's popular to do right now. That's, trending. People are disappointed with the beta in general audiences. It only had one hero. It brought out a couple new maps, one game mode. I get it. People are having that, and it's, of course, had the titanic fall off in viewership after the event ended for giving away keys. So that's not terribly surprising that they wanted to cash in on this with an article, but this is just laughably wrong. I mean, this writer clearly, we're looking at Renita Price here, clearly wants to think of Overwatch in this MMO style holy trinity where we've got our tanks who tank the raid boss and take damage and isn't that great, fantastic, and we've got our healers, not supports, who are focused on healing, and they like to heal the tanks because tanks are just better human beings than DPS for some reason. And then we've got our DPS over here, and it's their job to go destroy the raid boss. I mean, enemy team. I mean, go get picks, and their job, that sort of thing. Like, they clearly want this, and healers just need to heal and avoid mechanics, and they don't need to do damage. And tanks don't need to get kills. Tanks are supposed to control the enemy. That's not what Overwatch is. Overwatch, you're perfectly happy in Overwatch to have your support go through a purple nade in there, and your Winston jump on it and go get one or even multiple eliminations with no DPS contribution. You're also perfectly happy for your Ana to shoot a Pharah in the sky, maybe tap her once, maybe double tap her, and then have a Genji dash through it. And again, this time we comboed our support and our DPS for an elimination. All of these things happen. Again, we can go, hey, our Reinhardt gets in there and swings pretty hard, and he's sustained by a BAP, and because he's sustained by a BAP, he's allowed to swing 3 times and get an elimination instead of swinging twice. Oh, that works pretty darn well as well. Like, you're able to get eliminations in a multiple combinations of ways in this game, and that's part of what makes this game good. It's not this one-dimensional, okay, DPS have to go get all the eliminations while the raid boss stands static and we heal. Don't get me wrong. I love MMOs. MMOs have been great, but Overwatch is not an MMORPG, and this Vice article clearly wanted it to be. So that's just not going to happen. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Do you think this article has the right of it? Would you like Overwatch or Overwatch 2 to be more of an MMORPG? Is that where we're going to head with some of the PvP type stuff, where you just keep your Reinhardt alive while he keeps getting beat on, and then your Reaper just keeps chipping down the giant enemy Omnic? Is that what we're going to be looking at? Let me know in the comments down below what was the best laugh for you or what you were looking for in Overwatch 2. But I hope to see you guys in the next one. If you've enjoyed it, drop a like, consider subscribing for more thought-provoking Overwatch 2 content, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks. Temporal out.